right, I'm Moses Humphrey, and I welcome you to Political Voice. Now, before we go into the topic for today, let's look at stories making the rounds around the world. U.S. President Joe Biden has announced a $100 million humanitarian aid package for the people in Gaza. President Biden emphasized that not a dollar of the money will fall into the hands of terrorists. Now, the president made the announcement during a solidarity visit to Israel on Wednesday, in which he showed support for Israel's ongoing retaliatory military action in Gaza. Israel's action follows a terror attack carried out by Hamas on southern Israel on October 7. Now, back in the U.S., hardline Republican Congressman Jim Jordan has failed for a second time to win enough support from his party to become Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, he was opposed by 22 Republicans, two more than he lost in the first round voting the day before. Without a Speaker, the U.S. House of Representatives remains in paralysis, unable to pass bills or approve new emergency aid, such as help for Israel, Gaza, and Ukraine. Well, lastly, Brazilian congressional panel on Wednesday accused former President Jair Bolsonaro of instigating the country's January 8 riots and recommended that he be charged with attempting to stage a coup. An inquiry panel of senators and representatives, mostly allied with the current leftist president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who narrowly defeated Bolsonaro in last fall's election, voted 20 to 11 to adopt the report. And that will be it for the global updates. Now we head into the main subject for this morning on Political Voice. Now, the world over, conversation around gender-based violence have been on the headlines, but it's not clear if an increase in awareness alone is ultimately helping to change the narrative. Now, how does it feel to be a target simply on account of being a woman or a man? Well, recent statistics show that one in three women experience gender-based violence in their lifetime. And it's no better for men, because we hear that about 35% of women globally have experienced either physical or sexual violence, according to findings of a survey conducted by NOI Polls and Project Alert. About 16% of men are victims of domestic violence. 16%. Now, what this means is that in a lot of homes and relationships, all is simply not well. Or better said, all is simply hell, as my producer would rather say. Well, today, a slap, a hit, a kick, another time, deprivation of emotional satisfaction, the list goes on and on. But even then, the matter is way more complex than it looks on the surface. All right? And to make sense of it all, to make you understand it even better, and look for solution to the increasing gender-based violence, or increasing violence in the home front, we have joining us this morning, virtually so, we have Barrister Gladys Emmanuel, who is gender rights advocate at Tabitha Empowerment Center, TEC. I also have Emmanuel Bassi, a program officer at Association of Wives of FCT Traditional Rulers, and Obi Onyigwe, who is North Central Coordinator of Men Engage Nigeria. And they join us virtually from Abuja, the capital of Nigeria, but we are broadcasting from Lagos. Well, good morning. Welcome to the show. Now I'm going to start with the lady here. Let's look at. I'm going to start with you now. let's throw more light. I'm going to start with Barrister Gladys. I beg your pardon, Barrister Gladys Emmanuel. Let's throw more light on gender rights. Now, gender rights. What are these rights as they apply today?
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to be here. Moses, if you could take the question again. I think my network connectivity had a bit of a glitch there, so I lost you halfway through the question.
All right, then. So we're talking about gender-based violence now. But some people don't even know their rights. They don't know what is the rights that they have. All right. So, with regards to gender-based violence or violence on the home front, tell us more about the rights that people, the genders, should have in the home front, especially now.
All right, thank you very much. So I would be drawing from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is the first document we know that embodies anything about human rights. So UDHR, as it's fondly called, provides for right to life, freedom from discrimination, and all of that. Now, from this document, the United Nations was able to distill some of the other documents that we have today, which we refer to as international legal instruments. Take, for instance, the Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which is CEDAW. And also from that same document, we're able to distill the African Charter for Human and People's Rights. Now, Nigeria is a signatory to all of these international legal instruments. And from this, we're able to pick a few things and we infuse them in our constitution. Now, if you check the Nigerian constitution, it provides for things known as human rights or fundamental human rights. Now, fundamental human rights includes your right to life, includes your right, freedom from discrimination, freedom from inhumane or degrading treatment. It includes your freedom of expression, includes your right to vote and be voted for, and a lot of other things. Now, these rights are recognized, and human rights now does not distinguish. So long as you're a human being, whether male or female, boy or girl, this right applies to everyone across the board. However, where we're having the challenge is the presence of societal norms, the presence of certain religious doctrines, certain harmful gender stereotypes. Now, these are some of the factors that come into play and challenge the expression or the implementation of this right. That's why we hear phrases like protection of the rights, advancement of rights, promoting rights. Normally, we shouldn't be having these conversations because, they are laid out in various laws, whether it's laws at the national level or whether it's things like the Child Rights Act or the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, which most states in the Federation have been able to sign into law. However, implementation is where we have challenge. So whether it's a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, human rights applies to each and every one of us. However, there are certain rights that are specific when it comes to children or when it comes to women. Now, these rights include, for instance, you cannot take a child and force them to be married off to someone else. A child has access to education. Women are supposed to have access to resources. So long as you are a citizen of Federal Republic of Nigeria, you should have the right to vote and be voted for. You should have the right to practice the religion of your choice. Although rights are not, the scope of rights there's a bit of a, would I call it a limit? Because we have this not fun saying amongst lawyers and people who are enthusiastic about issues of human rights. They say where your right stops is where the right of another person begins. So you can't say because I have the right to life or freedom of movement, I could now go ahead and strangle someone, or I could go ahead and take the life of someone, or because this person is my child, I am the parents of this child, so I can do whatever I want with this person. Or because this person is my wife or my husband, I could subject them to various treatments that a human being should undergo. Things like female genital mutilation, human trafficking, and I'm sure we'll delve into that in the course of discussion. Thank
Oh,
you.
yes, we definitely will. That was quite an elaborate introduction there. But we do have some other guests as well. Emmanuel Basi, you're the program officer at Association of Wives of FCT Traditional Rulers. Welcome to the program as well. Now, let's
Thank you.
thank you. Talking about the association that you represent, interesting one, I must say. Wives of FCT Traditional Rulers. But we do know that traditional rulers, the African tradition has it that women or girls are married early, and that has been contested severally as a violation of their rights. Some we see cases where women are married at the age of 12 in some cases in certain parts of the country, 12, 13. And history even has it that the youngest woman to be, the youngest girl to be married in Nigeria, I can't remember the name now, but I think it has to do with someone from, is it Cross River? Thereabout. She was married at the age of 12. I will probably get the name out now. What is your organization doing to curtail the trend of girls being married early in life?
Thank you very much. So the Association of Wives are affiliated to the traditional rulers within the FCT territory. And so with the support of the traditional rulers, the wives were commissioned to set up an NGO just to sensitize the community on these same issues you've raised around early and forced child marriage. So it goes to say that the traditional rulers themselves are now becoming the solutions to these things we are seeing. With increased sensitization, with a lot of advocacy visit that has been done to these traditional rulers, the traditional rulers have now decided to take it upon themselves to also champion in their local language to their people why these things should henceforth stop. So the wives themselves, cutting across the 17 chiefdoms within FCT, they go to schools, they hold press conferences advocating for the end to early child marriage, while they also sensitize their women because there's a lot of factors that encourages this act. Apart from just the cultural way of people, there's also the issue of poverty that happens within this same sphere of people. So a lot of empowerment is being taken place by through the wives. A lot of sensitization is carried out in different communities to ensure that these things does not. A good example of what they've done a community charter, which is what they had called the Code of Standard, which governs how every palaces handle issues on early and forced child marriage. They came together, they said, no, this has to stop, and they set up for themselves a code of standard to say, whenever something like this happens, this is how it should be handled. And from that document, you find out that is in line with international best practices, is in line with the Constitution, and is in line with every binding document. So there's a consensus that is coming up right now among the traditional rulers that gradually we need to control and stop this thing through sensitization and also guiding how we ourselves handle these issues when they come to our palaces. So
Now,
this is
it's
ways
interesting
they
that
are
you're talking about sensitization. It's interesting, but quickly, how much have you done in sensitizing people? Because the people that need the sensitization are those in the hinterlands. Tell me about your journey so far in sensitizing people in places where they probably don't have access to radio or TV.
So there's a community in FCT, FCT being, the FCT, but there are communities in FCT where they do something that they call breast pressing to young girls, just for various different reasons. They see that as a solution for the young lady. They carry out breast pressing. So it is through our sensitization that we found out these communities, and we raised the women leaders there, because every of these communities have women leaders. And so we raised those women leaders, had them go through some GBV training. So from that, when you raise these champions within these communities, these people would also cascade the information down to everybody. So I can tell you that from even we had the wives had a survey that was carried out within last year, February 2022 to this year, and we found out that cases itself has increased. People are now reporting cases within these communities in all of these hinterlands, because these places, we go there, we speak in the Gbagi language, the Gbasa language, the Ibera language, those languages that are within the FCT. We speak in their languages and they understand. We are also on radio. So in all of this means we carry out this information. Through the research we did, we found out that there's increase in reporting. In Gwagwalada, for instance, where the university is based, we have now over 900 cases of XGBV reported within just that February 2022 to 2023. So in that 1 year span, there's an increase in reports by these local women, which are the focus for the traditional rulers' wife.
All right, then. Thank you very much. Now, let's also hear from Obi Onyigwe. You are the North Central Coordinator of Men Engage Nigeria. Now, we'll talk about the role of men in all of this. We'll talk about the role of men in all of this, and also the fact that increasingly men seem to be undergoing violence as well. The number of men being violated in the home front is increasing. But let's first of all have you introduce your organization. That's North Central Coordinate, and the Men Engage Nigeria. Let's know what that organization is about.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm very glad to be here. Our organization, Men Engage Nigeria Network, it is an umbrella body of different organizations, working in order to address gender-based violence. We also work to address the issue of female genital mutilation. We also address the issue of abuse of girls and domestic violence generally. And one thing about our organization is that people think when you see men engaged, it's all about men. No, we also have women who are also members of this network, who also contribute a lot in addressing gender-based violence. We are located and also actively working in 6 geos of the country. And we have different organizations working across the states and also contributing in bringing boys up in a way that they show respect to girls, in a way that we have responsibilities and commitment right from home, and in Men Engage we focus on parental responsibility and such heritage that we give to our children when they are at home in order to address the issue of gender-based violence. You recall that our children are given birth at home and there are different families. So our responsibility actually focuses on engaging boys and men, try to see how we could actually, transform those kind of negative masculinity into a positive one in order to address the menace of gender-based violence. We work in schools, we work in communities, and we have members across board who take responsibilities in front line, engaging men mainly, engaging boys in schools and communities in order to see how we could bring a different pattern of behavior that could actually make them responsible in order to reduce the issue of gender-based violence across those specific communities that we are working on. Thank you so much.
All right, and now let me come back to Barrister Gladys. Back to you now, Barrister. Now, This morning, was just going through a report, and then I saw this number. Well, this is for Lagos, actually. I'm sure you have the numbers for Abuja and some other parts of the country. In Lagos, we have the Lagos State Domestic Sexual Violence Association. They've recorded about 5,000. This was as at July. As at July this year, they had recorded about 5,624 domestic violent cases in 1 year. 5,624. What would you say? What would you say is the reason for the rise in domestic violence? Is poverty part of it?
All right, thank you very much. So we know that domestic violence is a form of violence that occurs on the home front. So it embodies physical violence, it embodies also sexual violence and other forms of sometimes even economic deprivation, as the case may be. So some of the contributory factors we have, I like the fact that Mr. Obi mentioned negative masculinity. That is actually one of the issue. Or when we say patriarchy, you've heard the saying, it's a man's world. So most people hinge their acts, they hinge their everyday to-day living on this particular caption or this particular cliche, as the case may be. So you see, you hear some young men or even older men say, in the days of our parents, women were seen but not heard. But this generation of women, I'm not sure what exactly is happening with you people. It looks like you've become very radical. Looks like you want to speak all the time. You're very opinionated. Now, the thing is, the tides are changing. The ideology that our mothers had and what the women of this generation have are very different. Women in this generation understand that they have rights, and they understand that these rights must be protected. So negative masculinity is one of the issues that we have. Then we have the presence of harmful gender stereotypes. What do I mean? There is a boy in a family, there is also a girl. When it's time to cook, they say, you're a girl, your way is, or your place is in the kitchen. And then she asked, what about my younger brother? And they say, well, he's a man. You know, men they don't do so much in the kitchen. So with this particular mindset, a girl is groomed. And of course, the man hinges on this and he says, you know what, I grew up this way. This is what it should be. But then you get married to a woman who is forward thinking, who is progressive, who disassociates herself from that harmful gender stereotypes that you're used to. And this causes lots of conflicts in the home. Then we have the presence of harmful cultural practices. What are harmful cultural practices? They could range from things like harmful widowhood practices. They could range from things like sexual abuse, incest, and the rest of them. So these are also some of the things that foster domestic violence in the home front. Then we also have dismissive attitude. Now, this dismissive attitude could come from either parents, it could come from persons in high authority who should or who are mandated to protect or advance the rights of individuals, not just women alone, but even men. So take, for instance, maybe people in law enforcement agents. You've heard the normal phrase that domestic violence is a family matter. Mm-hmm. We hear that over and over again. So a woman brings a complaint, maybe against a spouse, and they tell her, Madam, go and settle this at home. Now, this is a problem between you and your husband. Perhaps you were a bit disobedient, you know. So this is a way to whittle down or a way to demean or reduce the severity of what she's going through. I'll give a personal experience now. There was this particular client who was going through severe domestic violence, including threat to life. Now, when she approached, of course, a particular agency or a particular law enforcement agency, the first thing they told her was, you these women, you people like so much problem. Madam, just go and relax. I'm sure she'll be fine. Now, this is someone that was constantly being threatened every day. So these are also some of the issues. Then we have religious doctrines. And of course, we know that Nigeria is a country with an amazing legal system. So a legal system that allows customary law to excel, a system that allows Sharia law to also excel, and then we have the statutory law. So sometimes you see that there is some form of imbalance in the implementation process. Take, for instance, the Child Rights Act that came into being in Nigeria following the Convention for the Rights of the Child, which is a UN convention. Now, this particular legislation talks about things like protecting the rights of a child, not subjecting a child to physical abuse, not subjecting them to sexual abuse. Now, this is operational in places like Lagos State, which is doing a fantastic job, I must commend. And also in FCT, there's some glimpse of hope. However, in other parts of the country, we cannot say the same. The narrative is different. So with some of these factors, that is why we have a hike in spate of domestic violence. Also, prevalent culture of silence. What does that mean? It means that people are afraid to speak. Why? I would be stigmatized. I would be ostracized. I would be picked out and labeled as, oh, her husband left her, or she decided to access justice because her husband was beating her. I mean, is that not what we go through in marriages? I don't know why she's making a fuss about this. So people are afraid of those labels, and that is why they prefer to keep mute and continue to endure. Then we have vicious cycle. A child saw this happen. The parents are used to getting at each other's throats every once in a while, and then he or she grows up and decides that, oh, this is the way of life. I mean, this is all that I know, and they just keep up the same.
No, I'm listening.
Thank you.
Okay, all right then. Now, just reiterating that. Okay, a child sees that and feels, oh yes, this is how I should exert my authority and all of that. But I'm going to stay with you for a little bit longer now. In your organization, in your practice, have you seen men come to complain of violence meted out at them as well? Do they have the boldness to come out?
Yes, but they're very little. The figures are quite little compared to the women or the girls that come in. So let's take, for instance, in a week, maybe we get about 10 cases. In those 10 cases, maybe one is a man or none is male at all. And I've had male folks come confide in me, and they say, oh, you know what, I'm going through XYZ thing. And I ask, so why aren't you saying anything? You know how it is now. Society expects us to be masculine. We are not supposed to show any form of emotions. We're not supposed to show weakness.
So the stigmatization affects the men here as well.
Exactly. And the labeling.
All right then. Now, let me come back. Let me come to Emmanuel Bassey now. Emmanuel, let me come to you now. For what you do, Association of Wives of FCT, and how have you? What would you say has been what your organization is doing to encourage women who are being abused or who feel, especially now, I'm going to focus on the emotional abuse, all right? Because when it concerns emotional abuse, there's almost little to hold on to. It's one person's word against the other. There are no scars to tell you, oh, this is what has been done. How are you able to deal with that when cases like that come to you? Do you have any at all? And when they do come to you, how do you deal with that? Emmanuel Bassey?
Yes, so thanks to Tabitha Foundation, we are trying to build a new platform called DareTech, where we could promote technology and have these women call in and get counseling directly. So even the traditional institution is also now trying to embrace this digital medium. But traditionally, what happens is we invite the woman who now has a confidential hearing session with a woman within the palace. So within the palace now, they have either what they now call the Sarauniya or the Magadia, which is translated to for woman leader, or the Sarauniya, which is now the wife of the chief. So these women are now there within the palace to listen to you as a woman, understand where the issues are, then make recommendations to the chief, which means they will tell the chiefs, these are what, remember I said earlier that this particular traditional, these women leaders were earlier trained. So they know best practices and what to suggest to the chief. They now tell the chief, this is what has happened and this is how it should be handled. So the chief will now make his decision. And of course, the perpetrator, in this case being the partner, would now be invited and a fair hearing. Remember, the traditional restitution is not about arrest, it's about mediation, it's about restoration. So the palaces will hear from both sides and see how it can be solved amicably. So that's how we've been handling it. And there are cases already within the palaces of emotional abuse that are being reported. And so those ones are also handled within the palace, but they're always bringing the female members of the council to be involved within that sphere so that they can be a proper hearing and confidential hearing of those cases.
All right, now have you followed the cases through to the end?
Yes, we do follow cases through to the end, which means if there are cases that cannot be resolved amicably, we do have a system where we refer them to government authorities. There's a SAC within FCT, which is just one, but we are praying there's more. So it is there we now refer them for further counseling by professional and experts within FCT. And even this Dear TED that we are working with the Tebita Foundation, it also gives room for more experts who can actually, from anywhere within the country, attend to these cases, even online, which means these persons might not need to even go far. There's a league of experts within that sphere that would attend to all these women when they bring their cases moving forward. I think the program should be launching in the next 6 weeks. So all women within the FCT region would definitely be attended to when they have these issues of emotional abuse.
All right, so coming back to Barrister Gladys now, some organizations are of the opinion that divorce is not an option. It's against the tenets of the religion. How are you able to deal with that, especially when violence is involved? Well, this is for Barrister Gladys Emmanuel.
I'm sorry, take the question again.
All right, now I said some organizations are of the opinion that divorce is usually not an option, regardless of what one is going through in the marriage. All right. Now, how have you been able to deal with such beliefs, seeing that they are hinged on religion, especially when children are involved?
Now, like I mentioned earlier, one of the challenges we're facing
Go ahead, please.
And Nigeria, Christianity, it could be Christianity, it could be Islam, whichever one you believe in. Now, we've had women who also approached the center, Tabita Empowerment Center, to talk about, I'm from XYZ religion. My religion does not permit me to get divorced from my spouse. Now, issues of divorce, and especially when there are children involved, is quite complex. One thing you want to do is to support a person to get the help that they need. But again, you do not want to impose on them your ideologies or your thoughts. So you give them various options. For those who their religion doesn't permit, we give them the option of understanding that if you were married under the statute, meaning if you got married in the registry, or what some people call court marriage, it means that after a period of time, about 2 years, if there's no consummation with that marriage, there are no conjugal rights carried out, it means that you're separated. So for some people, they prefer separation than divorce. For others who still want to stay in the marriage, or who still want to stay in that house with their spouse, depending now, because the law is very clear. When there is an issue of domestic violence, and then there's physical violence, there is sexual abuse and the likes of it, that is a criminal offense. So irrespective of what your religion says, the law would have to take its course. So if it means that spouse spending some time in jail, or if it means us taking that woman or child away to a safe space and providing the parties involved with alternative dispute resolution, or providing them with some form of out-of-court settlement, then we'll be able to do that. But in a situation where we understand and we can see clearly that the safety of this person will be jeopardized should we let them remain in the same space with the perpetrator or the abuser, then we would have to let them know that divorce is the option you have, but you are also at liberty to decline. We've had women who come in and they say, oh, my religion doesn't permit, but after having an extensive consultation with them, they say, you know what, I think this is best for me and my children, because then I get full custody of my children, and there is some form of the perpetrator is not able to come close to myself and children, and is not able to harm us or threaten us any further.
All right, then. So, Obi Onyigwe, let me come to you now. There's one of the outlines here is economic deprivation. You know, how you can use finance to make someone, you know, financially dependent on one. I'm struggling. I mean, for the benefit of those that do not understand that, how does this play out, and what is Men Engage doing to ensure to, you know, talk to men so they don't commit this form of violence, in particular this form, economic deprivation?
Talking about economic deprivation, which it's also, you know, part of a form of a negative masculinity. In Men Engage, what we do mainly is in fact, we have men who are champions, you know, whose life is a pattern of model, you know, for other people to emulate. You know, I mean, these are men that have, you know, lived with their women peacefully and all that. So we actually use them to, like, you know, teach other men to follow such example. Actually, we know that economic issues are typical causes of gender-based violence across families in Nigeria. And we also go further to engage, you know, some of the women to actually have some, you know, basic livelihoods, you know, so that you don't depend only on men. And because of that dependence, it could actually result to, you know, factors of abuse and domestic negligence, you know, so to say. Going back to what happened in, I think 2020 during the COVID-19 issue, you know, which was a global disaster, we had more of, you know, economic deprivation and stuff like that playing out very big time. So Men Engaged actually stood out to see that we use our role models, you know, to show that this is a challenge that you can actually get out of if you are able to manage it very, very well. We don't see economic reasons, you know, bringing in maybe issue of divorce, as Gladys mentioned, and issue of separation. But if it is well transformed, but we see it as an opportunity to actually create a peaceful relationship, either in a marriage or friendship. So it is very critical that we have our role models who have lived a better life that we use to teach other men that economics or whatever it is could not be a challenge, you know, to scatter your family. And we've seen it actually played out, you know, using them as a very good example. And we have also our community dialogues, you know, when we also iron out, you know, specific issues that affect families. It could be the issue of economics, as you talk about. It could be other family issues, So we use our kind of, family dialogue to make sure that economic deprivation and other issues that might actually rise as a result of one factor or the other is actually taken care of. And before I conclude, I really want to, as you asked Gladys about, some of the contributing factors, I also want to make sure that I point out this issue of bystander. There's what we call bystander intervention. Now, whatever it is at any point in time, what Men Engage have always done is that it could be in a small community. We tell men and boys that we engage to always be a positive bystander. What does that mean? It means that you look out for, in case there are needs for you to actually intervene in situations that a man is beating the wife or a boyfriend is beating the girlfriend. So these are situations we've also trained our men and boys to also, contribute at any point in time, because we see them as role model. And it's also very, very important that we continue with this process in order to inculcate more of these standards into our boys, which we believe very strongly that the future husbands and future men that could also be a good character in order to address the issue of gender-based violence tomorrow.
All right then. Well, I hope that's working out fine. I do hope it's working out fine because Anyway, I'll have to come back to Barrister Gladys now. I want to ask you these questions. I want you to lump them together for lack of time. Cyberbullying. That's an area that we're beginning to touch on lately. We've seen people put out things, and then in some cases, they are being taken to court. But in the majority of cases, people just disregard. In fact, people are now being trained to ignore. But mental ability differs. The mental power of somebody to withstand certain comments differs from person to person. So help me lump these few things together. Cyberbullying, non-consensual sexting, and also doxing. Explain doxing, and then help me lump the advice that you would give to people when they are faced with things like this.
So, cyberbullying, basically, like the name implies, is a form of bullying that you encounter in using the cyberspace. So cyberspace could be using your social media, it could be visiting a website, visiting a particular page, and what have you. Now, non-consensual sexting is when someone is sending you, it could be as a form of SMS or a direct message on social media, where they send you messages of sexual nature that you did not consent to. You didn't agree to them, but they're imposing this on you. Then doxing, of course, is disseminating private or intimate pictures or videos of a particular person. The umbrella word that we know is, XYZ person is being blackmailed by so and so person. So in a situation where women or girls, because women and girls are the ones at the forefront of all of this, in a situation where we face these challenges, the most appropriate thing to do is to report to the authorities. Now, I understand that Nigeria is still growing with its data protection law as against other countries in Europe, where you can't even record a person while they're talking online or speaking online without their consent. But here we're still growing gradually, and I believe it's a step in the right direction. Just like you rightly mentioned, we have been groomed to look away. We have been groomed to say, it doesn't concern me. We've been groomed to say, so long as it's not brought before me, I shouldn't take part in this. But I want people to understand that cyberbullying is an offense, and is one that is punishable. So you could report to organizations such as the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, or you could report to the police, the Nigerian police. I'm very thankful that, especially in this part of the FCT, there is a gender desk where they respond to cases. And even the NSCDC, there is also a gender desk where most of the officers, their capacity are being built to understand the menace and the extent of gender-based violence. Again, like Mr. Bassi rightly pointed, in December, Tabitha Empowerment Center will be launching a platform that allows for persons to gain more information about issues of this nature, get expert responses, and also be linked to a service provider, or referrals are made for you instantly from the comfort of your home. All you need is access to social media, and responses or care or assistance would be offered to you. So we'll be launching that platform, Dear Tech, in December of 2023.
All right, then. You'll tell us more before we go. Maybe in a minute or two, you tell us more about the platform and how people can tap into it. But let me quickly take thoughts from Emmanuel Bassi now. Emmanuel Bassi, your thoughts on this now, what people should do differently, and what's the organization you represent is doing to the issue of human trafficking, forced labor. We do know that some people would, in their bid to provide someone to help out, or get someone to help out with chores in the home front, they employ certain people that are not of age. Now, that has been prevalent, if you ask me. What's your organization doing to curb it, or put a stop to it, or prosecute those that have been involved in such forced labor or child labor?
All right. So for organization, we know these things are there are law governing these behaviors, these human behaviors that are wrong, and so we tend to always carry out awareness creation around these issues to all our communities. And we, as an institution, we are not primarily concerned with making arrests. However, what is done within the institution is to say, if these issues are not, after reproach, after rebook, if it is not well attended to, we refer them to what you have as NATIP, so that these issues will now be taken, by within the sphere of the law, so that these persons will now receive justice on those issues. We have cases like that where in communities, I could call names, where the house help they will rub the pepper in her private part. So all of these behaviors are wrong. What the traditional rulers does is he brings all these persons together as a community and tell them this has to stop. And even where there's need be, the child himself is now taken back to his original parents. So, but these issues are also referred to government for it to be addressed properly. This is what the traditional institutions do.
All right then. All right then. Now, concluding thoughts now, Obi Onyeigwe, North Central Coordinator for Men Engage. Your concluding thoughts, if you have things to put out, words to put out, for men in particular.
Yeah, thank you so much. I believe very strongly that, gender-based violence, it's a global issue. And one thing I believe very strongly is that we all have the foundation of whoever we are as individuals, right from home and families. So either you're a father or a mother, make sure that we inculcate good teaching and good education into our girls and boys. I mean, this is one way, from my research and experience, we can actually, also contribute to reducing the issue of gender-based violence and sexual harassment as we have all over. And I'm very, very happy with what Tabitha Empowerment Center is doing. The Dear Tech program, which is going to take off as from December, is a very good one. And from Men Engage, what we've always done is that we engage girls at primary, secondary, and even at the tertiary institutions, let them know their rights, educate them so that they will be able to be part of the change, we are trying to create in addressing gender-based violence. And finally, voice of the people, I think the media also play a very key role in this. So I believe very strongly that you people have to continue, dishing out the right message and condemning all the condemnables, because there are a lot of rich men and big men who commit all sorts of atrocities in terms of gender-based violence. But sometimes the media don't pick up these issues. So I think that the voice of the people should actually, contribute more in speaking up against this, social menace. I think with this, we will be actually having a society that will be kind of, violence-free for our girls and women.
All right, then. Thank you very much. And most definitely, Voice of the People will lend its voice, will continue to lend its voice to the call for an end to gender-based violence and other forms of violence as well. Now, I'm going to come to you. I did say I was going to come back to you, Barrister Gladys Emmanuel. Now, tell us again, in a few minutes now, in about a minute or less, about the program that you were talking about earlier. Give us more information, please.
Right. So the theme of this platform is Dear Tech. Now, why did we pick Dear Tech? It looks like you're writing a letter to someone. It looks like you are attempting to communicate some thoughts to someone. And the major objective of this particular platform is, one, to provide expert responses to concerns on sexual and gender-based violence. Two, to link victims or survivors with support services. Three, to create a network of virtual advocates who would stand and speak against the menace of sexual and gender-based violence wherever they are found. And of course, we want to redefine the use of social media for the dissemination of anti-SGBV messages, both in and outside of Nigeria. The good thing with this platform is, regardless of your geographical location, so long as you have access to Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, you would be able to access these services. So we are launching off on the 2nd of December in the FCT, and we'll be kicking off from there. At the moment, we have about 6 partners on ground, which of course is the Association of Wives of FCT Traditional Rulers. We have Men Engage Nigeria. We have New Life Specialist Hospital and Rehabilitation Center. We have Ladies Leading Change. We also have Network Against Domestic Violence Foundation. And finally, we have Hope Alive Driven Campaign Initiatives. Now, so with all of these NGOs or CSOs on ground, they will be able to properly give those expert responses. We also want to be able to quash negative ideologies that fuel the continuous spate of sexual and gender-based violence in our society. Now, for the target audience, so long as you have access to a mobile phone, you are able to use this service. All
right, then. Thank you very much, Barrister Gladys Emmanuel, gender rights advocate at Tabita Empowerment Center. And big thanks to Tabita as well for what you're doing. It's a great work you guys are doing. Also, thanks to Emmanuel Bassi, Program Officer at Association of Wives of FCT Traditional Rulers, and Obi Onyigwe, North Central Coordinator, Men Engage Nigeria. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, for joining us on the show. Well, that's it on Political Voice today. Political Voice delved into a rather sensitive area, as against talking about the politics per se, but sensitive because they say charity begins at home. So we're trying to tackle issues from the home front. Well, that's the show for today. On behalf of the team, I'm Moses Humphrey, wishing you a beautiful day.